Om Ariva Ratanabal Samhata Yatra Nadyaha Saishantas Charite Bahuda Jayamanaha Om Ityevam Dhyayata Atmanam Svasti Vaha Paraya Tamasaha Paristat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. There in the heart, where all the subtle nerves meet, like the spokes of a chariot wheel at the hub, there shines and abides the Atman, stationary, immutable, yet becoming manifold. Meditate upon this self as Om, and Godspeed to you in crossing over to the farther shore beyond all darkness. Om, peace, peace, peace. Welcome, everyone. So we are continuing on in our study of the 58 verses of encomium to self-effort. And just to keep the thread of where we've been and where we're going to next, let me share my screen and we can take a look at the verses again. I did give them to everybody at one time, and if you've lost that or you need them in any case, let me know and I'll email them to you. So before entering into the play of relativity and multiplicity via the four states of consciousness, the Mother of Wisdom reminded me of the two who are one, and I meditated on them devoutly. Then, while associating with the body, the two limiting powers of Maya beset my mind and senses, but I remembered the Divine Mother of the universe and rested in her two priceless jewels. And this week, upon opening my eyes on the universe, the three worlds appeared magically, enticing me with promise. I took refuge in the two highest supreme blessings and was still and content. And maybe we'll look at this next one, but we should just take a look at it right now because it gives us an idea of the importance of number 3 before we move on to it. So, wondering at the nature of these worlds and their offshoots, I came to know of the 3 eternal gateways. Abandoning unrighteousness, I resorted to the 2 kinds of knowledge and attained the 4 fruits of life. So, when we first launched this series, I talked about how this is like a stotram. But I was thinking about it today after meditation. I said, no, it's more like sutras because it contains everything that's in footfalls and perhaps more. And if we are familiar with each one of these systems, then as soon as we read a verse, a sutra, then it all flashes in our mind. It perks what is already actually inside us in the deepest way, because all of these teachings were seen and then presented by the rishis and sages of India. So just to remind ourselves really quickly from last week, the 2 limiting powers are the concealing power of Avarana Shakti and the projecting power of Vikshepa Shakti. And those 2 things are necessary so that the universe can evolve outward, can manifest outward from formless matter, formless prakriti. And then we'll launch into the rest of this. So before we do that, I wanted to kind of start with an analogy, which I don't think everyone has heard me give, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. When we look at these sutras, we see that the poet of them is remembering and reflecting on past lives and from an illumined state, and is also remembering what it's like to go from formless, a formless state, in the womb of the cosmic mother, say, and then to take embodiment in knowledge without the problems of ignorance. But with also, as we see in these first 4 verses, also knowing the pitfalls that are out there. So, because as Babaji reminds us so many times, Maya is thick, and even the avatar has to shake it off. And yes, so the metaphor I want to use is that of the Shiva Lingam puja, where the Shiva Lingam, Shiva, we want to identify with that. Sri Ramakrishna tells us Jiva is Shiva. So let's think that we are that reality. And then the worshiper, the pujari, is the Divine Mother, and she's the manifesting power. She takes formless reality and makes it appear divided. She takes the indivisible and makes it appear divided. And that reality never changes as she does this. So in the case, let's think of Divine Mother as the Pujari, and we are Shiva, formless reality. And in the course of the puja, she's bringing us into manifestation, into an embodied state. And we are never to lose our awareness of who we are. And in fact, there's a word for that, and it's called Achyuta. It's a name given to Sri Krishna, and it means he who never forgets his divine nature. So in the beginning of the Shiva Puja, the Pujari bows and feels that identity and has all deep reverence for this, Paramashiva or Brahman, and does an invocation to seal that awareness. But this is Divine Mother. So let's just skip to the next part. And this is where she anoints the lingam with the waters of unmanifested Prakriti. So before that, Shiva is in that, if we're going to liken it to the 4 stages of the word, Shiva is para, P-A-R-A, that first state, which is homogeneous, indivisible, not even a hint of cause, there's no cause in it, and there's no effect in it. And so with the anointing of the lingam, with water, which we can think of as unmanifested Prakriti, this avarana Shakti that now creates the potential for manifestation. In the 4 stages of the word, we would call that pashanti. So the very potential for manifestation shows up here. And then the next thing she does in the puja is she offers him a Rudrakshamala, 108 beads. And we can think of those as bijams. These are all the sacred words that are used these are all the sacred ideas that come out as tattvas, that make it possible for word and meaning and sound to come together. So this is like pashanti, this is the madhyama stage. And as we can liken it to that vikshepa, that projecting power that we talked about last week. The next thing she does is she takes ashes and she puts 3 lines on the Shiva Lingam. And she's giving him the powers of time, space, and causation. creation, preservation, and dissolution, or projection, sustenance, and dissolution. Times, see, I said that one already, past, present, and future, and all these different powers that are needed to come out into the world. Now, right after she does that, because things get tricky, time, space, and causation, name and form are coming next. And that's where we can get caught up. Even Shiva, or is it they said, even Brahman weeps in the snares of Maya, time, space, causation, name, and form. And so the next thing is she puts that red chandanam, that red in the circle, in the middle there. And that's like awakening the third eye. And so that he's got a way back. And then the next thing she does is she puts that seed there. And, I can't say that I know for sure that this is part of the tradition, but it's always seemed to me that that seed is like that splitting of the bindu. So the potential for doing the half moon, splitting the bindu and returning back to formless essence is embedded in this process of his coming out, which is us. Jiva is Shiva. So then the next thing she does after all of that is she offers incense. So Shiva has all the powers now, projection, sustenance. That means that all those 24 cosmic principles have come spilling out of him from causal to subtle to gross. And the grossest one is earth. And so if, as we were talking about last week, if the effect is the embodiment of the cause, then every cause along the way is embedded in that final effect of the earth tattva. And so and what's it associated with? It's associated with fragrance, with odor, and with the sense of smelling. So in this offering of the incense, she is, so to speak, saying, okay, the whole universe is here. It's being offered to the Lord, who is the one enjoyer. And that, along with the light, which is like the light of consciousness, all the way down to fire, and being able to see with physical eyes and subtle eyes in the in the subtle body, all of that then is like sealed with the naivedyam, the food offering, because it's offered to Shiva, who is now, we can think, fully manifested. And that food, it signifies that he is the sole enjoyer of everything in the universe. There's only one Shiva. We are all parts of that. So the other piece that goes with this is just the knowledge that it comes out and it comes back in. And she made sure, just like Ram Prasad says, that Divine Mother sent me into embodiment and she gave me a wink, don't forget who you are. That all of Shiva has all the powers to not only come out, but go back in. So with that in mind, think about now these verses of the Encomium, where he says, before entering into the play of relativity and multiplicity via the four states of consciousness, he remembered, or the Divine Mother of Wisdom reminded him of the two who are one, that Shiva and Shakti, the two who are one. And I meditated on them devoutly. So one of the things that we'll see as we get into verse 3 is that as we look out into the universe, into the three worlds of this, the supreme, the absolute, the transcendent, and the physical, the immanent worlds, that we need to keep our inner guide in tow with us, this Shiva that we are, this divine mother that is our essence. Uh, and so this reverence that we take with us as we open our eyes upon the universe is what keeps the presence of uh, the divine guide with us. So, so then from there, as he meditated on them devoutly and made sure that he was connected, he then associates with the body. The two limiting powers come, but he remembers the Divine Mother, and he rests in Atmagyan and Anubhava. So he's remembering what the pitfalls are of getting connected into Maya, but he's still coming out into embodiment. And now he opens his eyes on the universe, and the three worlds appear magically, enticing him with promise. I took refuge in the two highest supreme blessings and was still and content. So these three worlds, immanent, transcendent, and absolute, they appear magically. They just arise naturally because the powers of Avarana and Vikshepa are there. Uh, he's come through the four states of consciousness. Uh, and then all of this is enticing him with promise, but he's remembering. The next word is he takes refuge. What is it enticing him with? All these different objects. But the thing that he takes refuge in, those two highest supreme blessings, happen to be Prema Bhakti and Brahmagyan, which are the two highest uh, realizations. Sri Ramakrishna walked around in Prema Bhakti and Brahmagyan all the time, and what they confer upon the so-called individual is the ability to see nothing but God, despite what the senses are perceiving. So then he was still and content. And so instead of allowing his senses to go out as if name and form was real, he stayed with the reality, which is the existence, the consciousness, the bliss, which is the essence, which is Brahman in all of these things. So that's just an overview of this verse, and we're going to take it apart a little more deeply, or a lot more deeply. The thing that I wanted to, there was something I was about to say. Well, we will go on. So let me pull up. Well, before I pull up, okay, the immanent world. This is the world, just to make sure we're all on the same page, because usually when we talk about the three worlds, we're not necessarily talking about the absolute as the highest one, but in this case, we are. So the immanent world is the world all around us. It's the so-called external world. So everything that we feel, I mean, even our body is external to us. We think of the body as external. So all that, everything that we perceive in the waking state is this immanent world. And then the transcendent world is the mental world, the inner world. This includes the heavens. And this is something important to remember, we are using this world every time we think, every time we use our will, every time we're using our mind, we are inhabiting that world. So to speak, if we are consciousness, if we maintain our awareness and our focus from moment to moment, then we will realize that we're existing simultaneously in the immanent world and in the transcendent world. And this is a beautiful thing to walk around like that, to experience that. Now, the absolute is beyond both of these. It is the as Babaji put in his chapter on this topic, it's the unmanifest infinity that is Brahman's abode. So this absolute state. So it transcends both immanent and transcendent. So, of course, I studied Babaji's chapter on these three worlds. And there were a few points that I wanted to bring out. And he said there are two subtle keys that bring the immanent and the transcendent into awareness and focuses their untapped potential, right? Because think about it, most of the time, maybe for us, for some of us, we walk around and we're just seeing the external world and we have all this inner stuff going on, but we're not thinking about how these two things work together necessarily. So this is so, and yet we know that if we bring our witness consciousness to the foreground as we're moving about the world, and then also remember God, remember Divine Mother, that puts a whole nother, uh, that deepens the whole experience. So, so these two subtle keys are important. They tap the potential of both of these these two worlds. So the first one is acknowledgement of the absolute, which is their foundation. Okay, we already know that, but here's a way of bringing it out into a little system for us. Number one, acknowledge the absolute, which is the foundation of both the immanent world and the transcendent world. And then number two is the ability to perceive this vast triad of immanent, transcendent, and absolute from a spiritual standpoint and not a materialistic standpoint. Now, that's probably going to be just natural for us, but it needs to be said, especially, if we happen to ever talk with people who are waffling on whether there is a divine reality or a foundation, a formless foundation to everything, that this ability to perceive this triad from a spiritual standpoint is essential because it'll make much more sense out of everything. So these two enable us to perceive the three worlds, the secrets of why they are here, and where they have originated from, and who or what fashioned them. And then there's the point about right orientation. Anytime we engage in study, it's important to have right orientation, which reminds me of my first trip to India with Babaji and Baba Trinima. And we were like his two little students in tow with him throughout that pilgrimage. And the first thing he taught us was, as we sat for study, to clear the deck. No food, no tea, not even water. Just the scripture and our focused concentration. And before we entered into it, because this is not like opening up a novel or opening up any other kind of book of knowledge, we were to recite Om Sahana Vavatu. So this right orientation is necessary to approach the three worlds. So this humility, as in Om Sahana, may we have the light of comprehension born of holy life and study. Otherwise, we, as he put it, disempower the primal guide. So the other thing to remember, and that he points out, is that this external immanent world is full of beauty and of objects that have come from a subtler world. And the transcendent world is best entered into by acknowledging this divine guide and possessing a balanced mind, right? Because the external comes from the internal. The immanent has arisen from the transcendent. And so I want to quote this one passage out of his chapter. A balanced mind is one that has not only vigor analytical power and intelligence, but also possesses humility, selflessness, a sense of higher purpose, and reverence for the creation and its source. Humility equals an ongoing willingness to learn. Selflessness, a desire to share what is learned. A sense of higher purpose includes the will to do whatever conduces to the highest good. And while a sense of reverence is the heart of the matter, ensuring that a continual connection with the source of all existence, from the phenomenal on up to the ultimate, is a matter of course. So you can think of all of this as a way of maintaining that connection all the time. So with all of these in tow, this humility, this sense of higher purpose, selflessness, reverence, then we can travel. Where we can travel, the directions are infinite. But he says we should be mindful, and I bet this comes later on in the Encomium, of the difference between the two directions of the mind. And this we will take with us if we keep that connection with the primal guide. So what are those two directions of the mind? Either towards poivalia, enlightenment, or separation from nature, or towards samsara, getting caught up in it and forgotten and forgetting it. It would be as if after Divine Mother put those three streaks of lines of ash on the Shiva lingam, she didn't put the chandanam or the akshatam, excuse me, the red bindu or the seed that splits the bindu, as if she didn't do that. But she gave that to us, and we must make use of it. So let's go ahead now and take a look at the three worlds in the chart that Babaji created. And I apologize for looking away from you as I take us through this chart. So what he did here is he listed all those things that fall under the physical world. And then in the transcendent world, he linked it up with the sukshma, or the mental world, the psychological world. But he also kind of included what we sometimes think of as the causal, so that the spiritual world, the absolute, in these lists, these correlations, let's think of them as correlations, so that they focus primarily on the non-dual reality that is the substratum of everything. So let's take a look at the immanent, the physical world. It includes, when we look at the three realms, excuse me, we're going to look at all of them together, sorry. When we look at the three realms, we have the Adibhuta that Anurag has been talking about in the Gita class, Sri Krishna's teaching. We have the Adidaiva, the celestial beings, and we have the Adhyatma, which correlates with non-duality. When we look at the four states of awareness, we know that the waking state is the immanent world, and then the dream state is in the transcendent. But because the deep sleep state contains all the seeds that will start to come out in the dream state, he's included it in the transcendent, in the psychological world. Because when you think about it, one of the deep practices that we have in spiritual life is dissolving all those causes, all those seeds of karma, seeds of samskaras that are there in the deep sleep state. So that's why it shows up here in the psychological world. And so then Turiya is relegated to the absolute. Then we have the three cosmic functions. In the immanent world, we have the projection of the apparent creation, or Lord Brahma. In sustenance, Lord Vishnu. We have the assumed preservation. Why does he say assumed? I'm sure you guys can all guess. It's because it's temporary. It's not real. It doesn't have existence of its own. It borrows its existence. So that preservation of the universe and all the happenings within it are like, you could say, a beautiful rainbow sheen on some water. Now you have it, now you don't. And then in the absolute world, we have withdrawal or dissolution, the supposed destruction, which then leads us right back into the formless absolute reality. So with the eightfold body, the Purastika body, which I think we also had recently in the Gita classes, we have the physical body in the immanent world, and then the ego, mind, intellect, and the five senses of action. And also, I'm sure the senses of perception would also go in there. Yes. And then Atman and Kundalini Shakti show up in the absolute world. So everything that partakes of the mind, and then out of the mind come the 10 senses, those are here. It would also include, I would think, the tanmatras as well. Oh, we're talking about the eightfold body. Pardon me, I went right into the 24 cosmic principles. Sorry. So the physical body, and then, right, ego, mind, intellect. So in the 24 cosmic principles, here we have it. So the five gross elements and the five active senses, when we think in this way of the 24 tattvas, then they show up in the immanent. And then the five subtle elements, the tanmatras, the five cognitive senses, mind, buddhi, ego, and mahat, show up in the transcendent, in the psychological world. And of course, Purusha is in the absolute. So we can go on like this, but well, no, let's go ahead and do it. So when we're looking at the Adara system of the five sheaths, the Annamaya kosha, of course, is the immanent. And then all the other koshas are in the transcendent, in the psychological. And Brahman alone is in the absolute. So here's something that is also really important actually, I want to say a little bit more before we go there. So remember that in this verse, I'll read it out again. Upon opening my eyes on the universe, the three worlds appeared magically, enticing me with promise. So just think about all the different experiences that we have across all these different ways of looking at absolute, transcendent, and immanent, right? These are so many things. I mean, what an incredible tapestry this universe is. So it would be very easy to get caught up in it, especially when we look at it in all these different ways. So then, if all of this is not enough, they're all also operating in these seven planes of existence, with Burloka, the earth plane in the immanent realm, and all these different heavenly realms, the astral plane, the heavenly plane, the plane of the rishis, the plane of the firstborn, the plane of the Vairajas, the Tapasvins, Satyaloka, the plane of Brahma. And then Ajata is in the absolute, non-embodiment. And then we can also look at it in terms of the chakras. And notice how in the immanent world, the first three lowest chakras are relegated to the immanent world, the physical world, Muladhara, Svadhisthana, and Manipura, which are the realms, as Sri Ramakrishna put it, of eating, drinking, and sex life. So then that leaves the Anahata, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, the Agya chakra, for the transcendent realm, and Sahasrara beyond all that as the absolute. So the purpose of going through this is definitely to show us that this is no small thing, opening our eyes upon the universe, upon the three worlds of the universe. And we really must keep that primal guide and our witness consciousness with us as we enter into those. So after thinking about this, are there any questions? Let me open this up to any questions that might be here before I move on. Alrighty. So in our last retreat, we talked about a particular way of doing mantra, Vedic mantra. And as I was thinking about these three worlds and studying about them, I was reminded of those teachings, and primarily because what is the purpose of learning about these three worlds besides thinking of it as a warning, right? But it's useful, it's not enough to list the constituents of the three worlds. We should recognize that they exist and how they arise, and that they are consciously or unconsciously a part of our moment-to-moment experience. We are always in the absolute world. We're just not conscious of it. We are always in the transcendent world, but we're using it maybe many times without realizing that we are in that realm. And maybe as a result, we're just relegating our thoughts to the immanent realm instead of being able to soar through all those different realms, to enter into deep meditation, to enter into samadhi. And we're always in the transcendent world, and we're always, in this immanent world. So you could say we leave the immanent world when we're in the dream state, but the body is still there, right? So long as the silver cord is connected. So the point is here that first, I want to say, to finish that thought, that consciousness is seamless. The substratum is seamless. The absolute underlies both the immanent and the transcendent. And so therefore, everything is always connected. And we should be able to dissolve all the name and the form of the transcendent realm and the physical realm. I should have put that the other way. The physical realm into the transcendent realm to reveal the absolute realm for ourselves. Because it's by being able to do that finally that we will not just intellectually know how consciousness is seamless, we will have actually realized it. So I wanted to remind us of that Vedic mantra. And let me just kind of flash this chart that Babaji used in the retreat. This is the breath of life, of eternal life chart, and the significance of pranayam in Vedanta and Ashtanga yoga. But what I want to focus on is right here, just this section here. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I mostly just want to remind ourselves of this. Because now that we have a good solid idea of these three worlds, we can also relate it to Om, to Bhur Bhuva Svaha of the Gayatri Mantra. So in Vedic pranayam, we're to repeat Om, with Om, repeat the Gayatri and the Vyahritis. That's Bhur Bhuva Svaha, the three worlds, which are not exactly the three worlds up to the absolute, but that doesn't mean we can't also have that idea in our mind. So this Gayatri with all of those are repeated with one breath, and we do this 3 times. Now, what's going on in this is that we are to keep the idea of Om, we're to keep the idea of the Divine Mother, and we're to keep the idea of Bhur Bhuva Svaha all together as we do this deep breath of the Gayatri. And then to add to that, in the Puraka part, the in-breath part, we are to think that we're taking the vayu, the wind of the heart chakra, deep into the lungs. It's a very interesting idea. It's something that, takes some contemplation and practice with, while holding all the lokas in mind and envisioning Kundalini rising. So this is like in the way that we were talking about a moment ago, we are taking this formless vayu, this formless akasha vayu, the perceptible Brahman, and we're bringing it into the lungs and keeping the three worlds, Bhur Svaha, in our minds. I mean, just mentally think of doing this. And so this is like evolution out of the universe. And then we hold our breath and we still all our thoughts in the Kumbhaka section. The body is still, the lungs are not moving, the mind is stilled of all thoughts. And one of the things that Babaji talked at that point in the retreat had to do with how in this state we are not breathing air, we are breathing consciousness. We're not moving our lungs. This is a very, very subtle thing. We are breathing in Brahman at this point. So we are not physical beings. We are pure spirit. And what would spirit imbibe at all times but pure consciousness? So then, Rechaka, we release the Vayu back into the Akasha. We empty the lungs and the mind and unite all with the soul in a condition of fullness. So it's this breathing in, which is breathing in of these three worlds, holding, going back to Brahman, breathing the consciousness of Brahman, and then breathing it back out again, dissolving those three worlds. So this is a simple sharing of how we can take this knowledge of the three worlds into our mantra practice with the Gayatri. So now, with regard to Babaji's chapter on the three worlds, in the absolute section, I wanted to share something else, because it's very beautiful. It's from the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. And this is where the Divine Mother herself is telling us about Brahman. You can read along with me. Making oneself attached to yoga, one should meditate on Brahman with unfeigned devotion. They call it unmanifest, but it is manifest very near, yea, even moving in the hearts of all beings. It is well known that it is the supreme highest goal, for all things that wake, sleep, breathe, and blink or move are founded on it. They call it being, and sometimes non-being, but it is beyond them both. Stopping here, I just want to remind us of that Om Eva verse in that part that says, where all the subtle nerves meet in the heart, there abides the Atman, stationary, yet becoming manifold. That becoming manifold is becoming is the fact that it's the substratum over this superimposition of all the activities of the immanent and transcendent worlds, the internal and the external worlds. She goes on, it is not an object, but it is yet the best object of adoration for all beings. It is smaller than the smallest, yet all the worlds are found in it, as well as all the rulers of all those worlds. Praise the imperishable Brahman, the creator who never lifts a finger, the revealer of all sacred wisdom, the omniscient one who is the source of immortality. And she goes on, Brahman alone is. This Brahman pervades all directions. This Brahman alone is full. This Brahman is the best. The one who realizes this is satisfied and has everything. Right? Okay, so this takes us right back to our verse 3, where he says he remembers the two highest supreme blessings, which we'll come up to them next, Prema Bhakti and Brahma Gyan, and was still and content. The one who realizes this is satisfied and has everything. He becomes Brahman, and his self is pleased. In no way can he be separated from me, nor do I separate from him. O sacred mountains, know that I am he, and he is I. Know that I am seen there where my Gyani resides. Neither do I dwell in any sacred place of pilgrimage. I dwell in the lotus of my Gyani. So, some super inspiring words there. Yes, so moving along here. So we're going to go ahead now and, in the next 10 minutes, which is probably all we need here, we're just going to take a look at the second half of this verse. Once again, the verse is, upon opening my eyes on the universe, the three worlds appeared magically, enticing me with promise. But I took refuge in the two highest supreme blessings and was still and content. So one of the points that is made by Babaji in the chapter on Brahmagyan and Prema Bhakti is that these are already conveyed upon this poet, and it is the Divine Mother who conveys them. And he put it in a very sweet way. This Prema Bhakti, which, if we're trying to access, what's the definition of that again? Is heartfelt, ecstatic love, and Brahmagyan is profound, non-dual wisdom. These are usually thought as two different tracks. The Bhakta, the devotee of God, is following a track that is to lead to Prema Bhakti, and the one who is seeking the highest truth is following the path of wisdom or of knowledge and arrives at Brahmagyan. But what the seers tell us, Sri Ramakrishna and others, is that Prema Bhakti and Brahmagyan unite at the top. If you have one, you have the other. So she says, it is as if she is knighting, Knight, Sir so-and-so, right? She is knighting the realized soul with her august weapon of non-duality gently upon the head and shoulder, transporting her devoted servant into a state of unexcelled absorption. And he also reminds us that Sri Ramakrishna said that, Divine Mother may give Brahmagyan, this highest non-dual wisdom, which confers the ability to see nothing but Brahman, no matter what the senses are perceiving. And she may bestow prema bhakti on a great devotee, but rarely, I just said they get united. So maybe I spoke too soon. I was remembering maybe a different teaching. But rarely do we see both in one individual. That's usually reserved for the avatars. So I must have misspoke, but I'm remembering something about a teaching where they unite at the top, highest love and highest knowledge. Anyway, Sri Ramakrishna calls it the sun and moon in the sky, and he would use Chaitanya Dev as the example of that. So just with this, let me just show one more chart, one that I put together a while back. Suddenly, hang on one second. Huh, that's not what I mean. Well, hmm, well, that looks like as far as I got in my studies. Bhakti Sutras 2. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring up the right chart. That's what's going on. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, these are just going to take us through a few quotes, and we'll bring our class to a close with that. So this is talking about Prema Bhakti. From Sri Ramakrishna, we read, after attaining Mahabhava and Prema, one realizes that nothing exists but God. Prema is the rope by which you can tether God, as it were. Whenever you want to see him, you have merely to pull the rope. Whenever you call him, he will appear before you. And then he says, is prema such a commonplace thing? There are two characteristics of prema. First, it makes one forget the world. So intense is one's love of God that one becomes unconscious of outer things. Chaitanya had this ecstatic love. He took a wood for the sacred grove of Vrindavan and the ocean for the dark waters of the Jamuna. And secondly, one has no feeling of minus toward the body, which is so dear to man. One wholly gets rid of the feeling that the body is the soul. Now, I'm certain that also in Brahmagyan, one has that as well. One has completely gotten rid of the feeling that the body is the soul. So, just a few things about prema bhakti. So, are there any questions or comments before we close? All right, I'll close with a prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvi Shavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with the world or with the teachings or with each other. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all living beings. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. This weekend is our seminar weekend, so we won't have the usual weekend of Sunday class, Brahman Bites, and satsang. I think I'm only saying this for Pratik. So we won't be online except for those who have joined the seminar. So see you there. And the following weekend, we also are on a retreat for the weekend. And so finally, July 8th, we will be back with the regular weekend, Dharma weekend. So namaste, everyone. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you.